do you think that the people that were early on, the reason why we thought it was so lethal, not that I'm saying it's not, um, did we think it was way more, like 100 times more lethal than it was because of the people that we were testing were sick enough to go to the hospital versus if I had it, I could have maybe not gone to the hospital, or I would have been in and out or whatever. Is that why we kind of thought, on top of not having all the data and information?
Yeah, of course. So lethality, the easiest way to calculate it is to say, of all the people that we have tested and who are positive, how many of them have died, right? So yeah, in the beginning, we only tested the sick people, right? And so that gave a bias to the lethality. And what you really want to know is how many people die out of everybody infected. But you don't know because you're not testing everyone, and you can never know that. So you can do approximations of that number, and they're all less than 1%, as opposed to, say, depending on your age. If you're over 80, the lethality is 10 to 15% deaths over confirmed cases. So all we know is the number of people who have died of COVID in the US, 700,000, as you say. I don't know how many people have been infected, so it's hard to know that. And so I think you're partially right. We were biased by the testing, especially early on. Also, early on, we were protecting kids. We kept them home from schools and so forth. And now we're letting them back in school, and we're having more and more kids infected. And even though the fatality rate is lower among kids, they do die. They can die. They can get serious disease, which we weren't seeing at the beginning of the outbreak.
Right.
I like to show us a slide from the earliest data in China, which shows in January in Wuhan, in the eldest population, the fatality rate was 10, 15%. And then when you get to April, it's down to 2%. And, we realized that it was targeting older people. The serious disease, at least, was more likely in older people. So they were being more careful. But also, in the beginning, hospitals were overburdened. They couldn't take care of people. That gives you more people dying. They learned how to take care of people. So fatality is a squishy number, I like to say. It's not a constant. It really depends on age. It depends on when you are in the outbreak. It depends on your hospital system. And so you can't make blanket descriptions. If you want to say the real number, it's a statistical calculation, and you just don't know that it's right. But what we do know now is that if you're older, you're at higher risk for serious disease compared to being younger, for sure.
Right. Yeah. And of course I see stuff like this in the news all the time, where it's like, I always read about, 26-year-old healthy man dies of COVID. And I'm like, and then of course I read and I was like, well, he had like lymphoma or something like crazy
Sure.
that they don't talk about. Just like they kind of, the media really pissed me off the other day when Colin Powell died. And they said Colin Powell dies. And it's like, with COVID complicate, and I'm just like, you have to throw that in there to kind of scaremonger people. And
Of
a
course.
friend of mine, Anthony Davies, said, he's like, because I always talk to him about economics and these crazy big things that are happening, and he's like, listen, he's like, if it's in the news, typically it's very rare. It's only in the news because it's happening so little that they need to blow it up, like the whole nurses quitting and all that stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of what I was piggybacking off of, the early on stuff that we didn't know of, like, is it really lethal? Of course it's lethal. It's killing people. It's just
Yeah.
not killing, 20 plus year olds. It's killing 80 plus year olds more frequently because they're more susceptible.